I'm Mike Gilliam for CUNY TV. The documentary you're about to see tells the story of the most important higher education minority student access and support effort in New York State history.
Seek is the grandfather of opportunity programs for the nations.
Some of the teachers didn't want to teach us because they thought, well, you all can't learn this. You know, this is too difficult for you.
I don't think there's a piece of legislation that I was more proud of than this one.
We certainly want to leave the door open to anybody who wants to go to college. That's what New York is all about. That's what America is all about.
Seek was designed for me, for poor people. And I never forget that I was a poor person.
Seek grew out of the civil rights struggle when blacks fought for equal rights, with higher education being a key battleground.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This afternoon, following a series of threats and defiant statements, the presence of Alabama National Guardsmen was required on the University of Alabama to carry out the final and unequivocal order of the United States District Court of the Northern District of Alabama. That order called for the admission of two clearly qualified young Alabama residents who happened to have been born Negro.
Minority students in New York City also faced barriers to entering the city's major public institution for higher education. A group of forward-looking political and educational leaders created the Seek program to remove these obstacles at CUNY. A similar program, called College Discovery, was developed for the two-year colleges.
I grew up in the South Bronx. Our world was very, very small. And we only knew the 5 blocks that we lived in. And it was a scary world for us. I think the most profound experiences I had when I was young was seeing a friend of mine OD on drugs with the needle still stuck in his arm. And the other experience I had was when my girlfriend in high school got pregnant. I remember whenever I had to go to see her, I had to pass the garbage cans to go down into her apartment. And there were lots of kids there because she had lots of sisters and brothers. And I realized after she had that child, she'd be there. And I knew I didn't ever want to be there. And I didn't want my life to end that soon. When I got out of high school, they didn't necessarily hire black women, even as secretaries. Factory workers, yes, secretaries, no. And so it was not an open door to finding a job.
It was unfair. Because you went to a poor elementary or poor junior high school, you were doomed for the rest of your academic career.
When I took over the chancellorship, the institutions seemed to be catering to primarily white students who were in the upper part of that graduating class in high school. Nowhere was it more dramatic than in City College, sitting in the middle of Harlem as a primarily white, heavily Jewish institution.
So we decided to set up a program under which we would have criteria that would enable these young people to be admitted to the City University and receive special courses and special programs to bring them up to par to the other kids.
In 1964, this program was first tested in the two-year colleges as the College Discovery Program. Then, a year later, City College piloted the pre-baccalaureate program, which was the forerunner of the Seek program in the four-year colleges.
The moment of truth has finally arrived in America.
Then the
African American and Hispanic legislators got behind the program, said, why don't you do it in other places?
We wanted to create a program so that the injured of our society could occupy positions of power.
We understood that our numbers were so small that we had to use very skillfully what power we had. As Percy used to say to us, you can't dance every set.
Much is made of the so-called midnight march.
We went in to see Tony Travia in the DeWitt Clinton Hotel, sitting in a small room, some on the floor, some on the radiator, some on the side of the bed, and led by Percy Sutton and Shirley Chisholm. And we said, Mr. Speaker, we're politicians too, and we need to take something back home. And we explained to him that there would be the inability for him to be re-elected Speaker if our votes were not available. So that night, the Seek program was born.
Republicans joined Democrats in this endeavor. Sure, there were people who didn't want to see it. There was many Democrats as Republicans who didn't want to see Seek. But the coalition of those who saw the benefit of opening up the CUNY system to everybody and at least giving people a shot, they're the ones who prevailed.
One must have to give a lot of credit to Julius Edelstein.
He was Al Bowker's chief advisor. Julius was the go-between between the Black and Puerto Rican caucuses and the legislature itself.
And we came up with that formula where we never mentioned race. We set specific criteria that would not lead to racial difficulties. And of course, the best answer is to recognize that every group has people who are poor, that every group goes to schools that are inferior.
I thought we had a moral obligation to reach out and bring those children in.
I was a messed up teenager. I had no future, living for today. Tomorrow, I'll deal with that tomorrow. This is where I went to high school. When I went, I didn't go a whole lot. A couple of friends and I, we used to cut school a lot. We used to drink alcohol in the morning and shoot pool in the afternoon to kill the day until it was time to go home. This looks as big as I remember it to be. When everybody was applying to college, I said, sure, I'll fill out an application, and got rejected by the City University. I was told by the college advisor that Bronx Community College Plastics Technology was the safe program. Everybody can get into that. Well, I didn't get into that. When I got the rejection letter, I made an appointment to see the college advisor. She said there was a special program that really wasn't for me. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, it's really designed for minorities. And I had asked to see the application. And I said, where does it say what's my ethnicity? It doesn't ask me that. It doesn't ask me my race or my religion. It just talks about being educationally disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged. And I felt I qualified.
When Governor Rockefeller saw that he had the support of the legislature, including its minority members, he signed this historic program into law on July 5, 1966. It became known as Seek, or the Search for Education, Elevation, and Knowledge. It was the first state-mandated opportunity program in higher education in the country. That September, 1,400 Seek students walked through the doors of City College, Brooklyn College, and Queens College for the first time.
I was very focused on keeping my foot in the door so it couldn't slam on me. And not waking up and finding out it was all a nightmare or a dream. I wanted that opportunity vociferously.
Julius Edelstein, after making sure that the legislation got passed, had an even more difficult job. Now he had to sell the program to the colleges, to the senior colleges. And this was a very difficult time in the city as one would expect. And so many presidents and many faculties did not want the Seek program, even though they had to have it.
So we had to learn. And I think we learned rather quickly, some of us, and begin to recognize that we were teachers, not simply professors of literature or scholars of literature, which is what we really wanted to be. But we had responsibilities in the classroom to the students who were sitting there before us, and we had to reach them. And reaching them was a new educational experience for the people in our college and throughout the university.
What we did was to create the kind of program where these students could get the attention that they needed. Gave them like a 1 to 20 counseling ratio. It's unheard of now, right? We had special classes in reading, special classes in writing.
It was just a really rich experience intellectually for me. We had a lot of intellectual life. We were exposed to lots of ideas.
It was a wonderful environment, encouraging in many ways. You were, in fact, in college, even if you didn't quite believe it just yet. And you were accumulating credits towards your degree.
We had faculty and staff who dedicated their lives to us. They created the pedagogy that we needed.
Mina Shaughnessy directed the entire English component of the program, and she was so good.
Mina dedicated her life to showing, oh yes, we could be taught, and to come up with ways to teach us.
She wrote a book called Errors and Expectations, which expressed this. Errors on the part of the students, expectations, she would say, unfairly low expectations on the part of teachers.
Out of her small coterie has now come departments. Every department must have its group of people who know how to teach writing, in contrast to the literature professor.
The minority programs did put, kind of a minority consciousness into the university.
Many of us understood that our role was not just to be students, but to find ways of opening the doors for more to come in.
There was upheaval all over the country on the campuses, primarily because of the war. Women were trying to get their rights and trying to get a voice in society.
There were demonstrations and demands made for more of a minority presence and also for cultural recognition of minority students.
And the legitimacy of our issues led to a negotiation process that allowed for the open admissions program to begin in 1970 instead of the projected 75. And that allowed for a greater influx of students of color into the City University as a whole.
So that it may have started at City, but it swept from one college to the other until the entire university were involved in reaching out and saying to the people in New York City, this is your institution. It's your opportunity for education. And come. And come they did.
So we're originally from Colombia. We're a family of 10 children. My father was an accountant back in Colombia, and my mother was a housewife all her life. He died when he was 50. After that, my mother decided to immigrate to the United States. When we came here, we had no skill or we didn't have the language, so we went to look for jobs in factories in the garment district in Manhattan. We were very financially constrained, and we all were sort of supporting each other.
Thanks God we had that Seek program in order to help us to go ahead and not to be worried really about the financial situation.
It's like when I came to the United States, somebody throw you to the ocean and you are wet and alone, and a boat came to you and take out, dry you, and bring you with the boat to the right way. That is Seek for me.
Tens of thousands of kids went to college who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college. They know about Shakespeare's works. They know about the physics of nuclear physics. They know about the history of the United States. They know math backwards and forwards.
Not only did we focus on the pedagogy within the basic skills, but we've broadened it to include a lot of what happens psychologically.
The idea that summer school could be given as a time that you would use a pre-freshman program to prepare students so that they would be able to meet the rigors that they would encounter in the fall.
Summer program was fantastic. You get a good feel of the environment in Queens College. You get to meet new people. I met a lot of great people. And you get a little head start of how college feels.
And what happens in that freshman year to support students being successful over that very first difficult year.
Learning is about success and learning is about failure. You think you know more about failure than success, and I'm saying to you, you have to learn more about success than failure. You have to take the natural skill of the desire and passion for doing this educational experience, and you have to make it work for you, in spite of not liking the instructor, not liking the subject.
And it wasn't too long before it was clear to me that, you know, the ideal model for supporting students in the City University was what Seek was doing. You know, that all students ought to have access to academic guidance. All students ought to have access to, you know, personal and emotional counseling.
Inspired by Percy Sutton's leadership, Arthur Eve pushed the legislature to expand Seek throughout the State University of New York as the Educational Opportunity Program, or EOP, and then into the private colleges across New York as the Higher Education Opportunity Program, HEOP.
When I was elected in '66, I came to Albany in January '67, and I saw that Seek program, and I read the background on it. I said, I gotta get this in Buffalo.
A single piece of legislation that has done more to break the cycle of poverty for the disadvantage of this town than anything else that we may have done. So Seek was a pioneer. It's been copied by state after state.
Seek's impact on college remedial programs across the country was so great that Congress designated December 11, 1986, National Seek and College Discovery Day, and President Ronald Reagan issued a proclamation.
So this is an ordered pair. Always X comes first, Y comes second.
Over the years, the population has shifted from the initial American-born Black and Puerto Rican to much more of an immigrant population, so that you have many different Hispanic groups. You have Blacks from the Caribbean as well as the African continent. Probably the largest growing population is Asian.
My family comes from Fuzhou, China. My father being in the United States in 1988, he came here by boat, illegal boat. And when he came, he was lucky because 1989, China have a Tiananmen Square, June 4, and he lucky got a green card. So we are lucky to be here in the United States, have an American dream. This is the first job I have. It's $1 an hour. There's a lot of kids, 13, 14 years old, and we work for the government factory. The boss always think about making money in the government factory. They don't care about people who get sick, who don't get sick. Every time he make $1 an hour for me and my sister and other kids, and then we're happy. We don't know how much the minimum wage in America. At that time, I'm sure it's like $5.25. Because in Chinatown here, if you're Chinese, you can survive. But if you go out of Chinatown, you have to know the English to survive in America.
One of the things that Jen would come to me about was to ask me questions, not school questions, but sort of questions about what opportunities or what careers or what schools he could go to, because Jin came from a family where he didn't know those things. His family might not have been aware of what the opportunities were in education. He got an internship with a federal court judge, and he says, how's that? Is that a good internship? And I said, yes, that's a good internship. You had to sort of help him understand a lot of things that he wasn't sure of because he didn't see them from his experience.
It's mean a lot for me. It's kind of mentor in my life. So, I mean, in my future, if he need me help anything, I'll be there for him.
Let there be no mistake as to what this demonstration is all about. It is to communicate to Mayor Dean and his cohorts that we know what the city is trying to do. This is purely and simply the second effort to kill the Seek program.
Every year, we have to go to advocate and beg for funding to continue the programs. The programs are not entitlements.
Zeroed out. 1 year, Seek gets X million dollars, next year, nothing.
In 1995, the then Governor Pataki decided that he was not going to fund the opportunity programs of the state.
I think that's a big mistake that was made by some people who thought, well, if it's a tough fiscal year, you can cut Seek out and do without it for a year or two. That's not possible, and you're going to destroy the program.
So what we want to do is remind Governor Pataki his budget's got to go. Let's go. Hey! Pataki's budget's got to go.
When he did sign it into law again, he reduced the budget by 25%. The Office of Special Programs had to figure out a way to continue to support the students.
There was a budget crunch in the university.
We really started looking at working with students we knew we would have the best success with. And it's only fiscally expedient to do that kind of thing. And although we did it with a lot of criticism that we might be leaving out students who traditionally should have been in the program, as CUNY raised its admissions standards for the regular 4- and 2-year programs, students coming into the Seek program really turned out to be better prepared, where we could have more success with them.
Now there is much more emphasis on ensuring that students not only have access to the university, but are also successful. College discovery students have consistently higher graduation rates and lower dropout rates than regular admits. Also, Seek graduation rates have gone up dramatically. In fact, Baruch's rate is higher than the student body at large, making it the highest in CUNY.
Seek continues to develop innovative services to help at-risk students succeed in college. In fact, 2 services have been awarded prestigious grants from the United States Department of Education. They've been replicated across the country, like Brooklyn College's Critical Inquiry Method, which teaches students how to master college-level materials.
So you have to read the first time so you understand what's going on, but the second is where you start tearing it apart and then putting it together for you.
And City Tech's self-regulated learning program, in which students actually learn how to learn.
Well, a year back, you couldn't come to me and ask me, Melissa, can you help me out with this math equations? Because I would be just as lost as you were. But now, I feel like a genius.
Now, what our data show is that Seek and college discovery students do as well, in some cases better, than regularly admitted students on the college proficiency exam.
All along, giving back to the community has been an important part of the program.
All of these support services have become best practices in other institutions and across the country.
It is a great pleasure to present a scholarship of $1,000 to the class of 2006 graduate Jin Ren Zhang to pursue graduate studies. Jin, who majored in government, is graduating today cum laude. His record of participation in community service and campus activities has also been outstanding. Jin is past president of the Asian Student Association and has been a volunteer leader of the Committee Against Asian Violence. This fall, he will enter the MPA program and begin a New York City Urban Fellowship. Congratulations, Jin.
When we were in Colombia, no matter what my father did, it was extremely important for us to get education. He never dreamed about leaving us money, but leaving us a tool to be confident in ourselves and defend ourselves in the future. So he would feel extremely proud of where we are at right now.
Yo no pensaba nunca que mis hijos iban a ser todos profesionales. Y todos los días alabo a Dios y me mantengo muy contenta.
I've never expected all my children to graduate from college. And every day I thank God for the life that I live.
I've been the registrar at New York City College of Technology for 22 years now. You know, I had a right to fail. That was my feeling, was give me an opportunity, and if I fail, it's on me. But don't deny me the opportunity, because when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, I made a wrong decision.
The impact of the College Discovery and the Seek program has been tremendous in this city. We contribute to the intellectual capital of this city, to the professionalism of this city, to the economic capital of this city.
You have individuals who have taken on leadership roles in government, in medicine, in legal, in law, in almost every facet, the arts.
Seek, EOP, HEOP, subsequently all of the other educational programs were developed around that. They now pay back to the state and taxes. It was estimated like $800 million a year. And all the programs funded together probably doesn't come to $50 million.
It transformed higher education. It made it from something that was the exclusionary kind of property of whites primarily to something that has to be shared.
A growing share of our country's future are young people that are growing up in low-income families today. How well we higher educate this population will have a very great deal to say about how prosperous and secure and how socially healthy we are as a country. Are we together? Are we all in the same boat, rowing in the same direction? Or are we fighting each other and pulling each other down?
At the very least, this should still be a country of a second chance.
Today, more than 11,000 Seek and College Discovery students are thriving on 17 CUNY campuses. Thanks to these programs, more than 230,000 New Yorkers did not have their academic careers end with high school and were given the opportunity for a better life.
This is a moment that every parent hopes and waits for.
There were times where I thought, I wasn't gonna make it. There were times I just, grab my hair and go, I just wanna quit. But, I just stuck with it. Seek office helped me out a lot. How you doing, Professor?
I have two other children, and to see her, she just set a wonderful example for her younger sister and her brother. And it's even encouraging me to want to go.
The first person in the family to get a degree.
Well, I am very thankful for Seek and CUNY for accepting Shireen to their program, and she's doing well. And she has inspired me. As soon as she's finished with her master's, I'm going back to school to get some degree in something. I'm proud of her, just to make her proud of me also.
Some years ago, I was selected by the President of the United States to be a delegate to one of the most important conferences that the United States engages in. It was then called the G7 conference. And I went there, and when I got to South Africa, there were numerous young people who were doing advanced work who came to celebrate with me to talk about how beneficial the Seek program had been and to thank me for my participation. Now, I don't remember all of the people who were in the Midnight March, but I can tell you this, they did. They remembered. They were not there, but they remembered.